Hello everybody, so I'm very pleased to be with you today to elaborate about this theme. What is the benefit from the new technologies to enterprise? So first indeed, we talk about enterprise because they are the main stake. They have their stake of digitalization nowadays, not only of their customer relationship, but also of their factory. And thus, it's all about the data journey. The data journey that will help them to digitalize their processes real time. Now we have this opportunity to develop new usage thanks to real time. So let's come back to the list of these new technologies. What are you talking about? Maybe we should illustrate it by the data journey. And so first we have the IoT. Often we think about the sensors, the captors, but don't forget the cameras, don't forget the robots. It will correspond to new use cases, to different applications we will illustrate afterwards. So it's the data collection. Then we have the networks, either with the equipment on premise or with the equipment in the operator premises, and this is the data transmission. And at the end we have the cloud that is the data processing, and maybe we can go a step further with the applications and with the artificial intelligence, and it's where we have the data analysis. So as you see, it's a value chain. We have several actors concurring to this value chain. It used to be different ecosystems, by the way, but what I want to emphasize is that these ecosystems will have to cooperate together to make this promise end-to-end. So what is the first tangible benefit for the enterprise? It is the operational efficiency. Nowadays, as I said, thanks to a data-driven model in a data-driven world, the companies have the opportunity to modify, to adapt their operating model for an enhanced operational efficiency. And so, for example, I mentioned the real-time usage of their data. Indeed, we consider that within the 5 years to come, we will have more or less 30% of the data that will be used real time. So let's illustrate that. If we simply think about the enterprise as processes interacting with objects, then we have here the opportunity for automation. And if we think about the processes interacting with humans, either employees or customers, then we have the enhanced customer experience or enhanced employee experience. So in more details, automation. Automation is the capability and the opportunity real time to manage your robots, for example. The main application is the Industry 4.0. The Industry 4.0 that will digitalize its factory, so will be able to monitor its robots with its performance KPIs, for example, will be able to detect defaults in the production line, for example, thanks to real-time video capture, and so to steer the robots, so to modify their action. So it's really the data analysis with artificial intelligence and computer vision that will feed back, thanks to a closed loop, to minimize the default, to optimize the robot actions and the monitoring of them. We have also examples in the employee experience field, and it's what we call, as a concept, the augmented technician. So the augmented technician, what is it? It's the fact that a technician that is not an expert is able to be assisted by remote documents of all kinds with augmented reality, and will be able to be assisted by other employees, by colleagues that are more experts. So it will enable the enterprise to have on-site less skilled technicians and nevertheless be real efficient in terms of operations. So what is the second benefit we may think about for the enterprise when we are talking about these new technologies? It's their ability to modify their business model, to switch to a business model that is as a service. And why? Because nowadays the consumption model as a standard is going to the as a service, is going to the on-demand expectation. So of course these enterprises need to be back to back with their providers, and especially their providers for connectivity and for a cloud, to be able to manage and to set up this new model. We have the equipment as a service trend that we see in the industry. I've talked about the Industry 4.0 previously, so it could be embedded in that. And it means that you are not buying your machine, your robots, you are renting them with a service. In fact, you are buying the service of your equipment that is both monitored with its KPI, steered with loops that enable to act on them, and maintained in an anticipated mode thanks to artificial intelligence. So you are able to minimize the failures, to minimize the defaults in your production line, and also to minimize the outages of your production line. And as you see, it can be efficient, it can be set up only if its capabilities, its enablers, technical enablers, are themselves as a service and providing this real-time promise, and providing also up to the adaptation of the quality of service to the usage that we are talking about. I want here to emphasize that one of the key benefits and key added value of the 5G and the edge computing is indeed thanks to the proximity to the usage, and thanks to a new concept that we call the slicing, the ability to manage globally quality on demand. Quality on demand is parameters for latency, meaning real time, parameters for security, parameters for bandwidth, and so on. Isolation, of course, from one usage to another, to be able to serve critical business processes. So this is also a very important notion, this slicing, for this new business model, because it allows quality on demand. And the third benefit for the companies is the green one. Indeed, more and more companies are concerned about their environmental impact, and even commit publicly about their reduction in CO2 emissions, for example, as Orange did, by the way, quoting minus 30% within the 5 years to come. So if these enterprises want to minimize their environmental impact, they need this back-to-back commitment from their supplier. And their suppliers, of course, once again, all along this value chain, digital suppliers. So here, if we zoom specifically on 5G and edge computing, by design, since they are based on cloud architecture, they just consume the minimum resources that is adapted to the usage, to the needs. So it's this beauty of the cloud architecture. And secondly, for the 5G itself, on the radio part, what we call beamforming will help to minimize also the radio emissions and the energy consumption, targeting only the active devices or the active phones. The second way enterprises contribute to the environmental impact thanks to these new technologies is when they play a specific role in the field, for example, of water or energy supply. Here we have the opportunity on the value chain end-to-end, and this comes also to a new concept that we call data space, to share data and to optimize globally the production, for example, thanks to a real-time capture of the consumption. We're able to adapt the transmission or the distribution of this energy and water if we detect leaks, for example. So we are able to share this data real time between actors of the same value chain, going from production to transport, distribution, and consumer, and to optimize it globally. So minimizing the environmental impact, optimizing the consumption of electricity and water, for example. So before we quit, let's recall what these new technologies have in common. They bring the capability to handle huge data volumes real time, especially the ones coming from camera, the low latency, the capability to manage huge number of devices, and the capability for differentiated quality of service. As a conclusion, to sum up these benefits for the enterprises, we have benefits of three kinds. First, the operational efficiency. Secondly, the business efficiency with the possibility to shift your business model. And third, the environmental impact. But as we saw, of course, all these technologies, IoT, 5G, edge computing, artificial intelligence, are synergic and they concur to a value chain. So we need, as suppliers, as the ICT industry, to be able to serve this promise end-to-end to our customers, to these companies, so to have a perfect, seamless interoperability and to have the capability, therefore, to set up and manage this promise of quality on demand. These new technologies, they bring the capability for low latency, the capability for huge data volumes handled real time, and the capability for a huge number of IoT objects, and also differentiated security levels.